Yes, what's going on, people? Seems like the stream still didn't work out. Even the efforts I try to use to stream it during low latency time. Yeah, so I'm just gonna record this now. So let me just pull up these questions here. So I'm just gonna record the questions. So, what is Thoth? So Thoth is basically, how can I say it? Thoth is a way to describe a certain development of consciousness. So consciousness, if everything was nothing right now, as it was before, everything would be considered raw consciousness. And that raw consciousness develops itself. And to develop itself, it goes through different phases. So one of those phases is Thoth. And that phase, it kind of depicts when that development of consciousness is able to communicate with its surroundings and its creator to understand what's going on. It's able to read its surroundings and comprehend what's going on to understand the intent of the creator. So Thoth is like a natural part of the process of development for everything, but mainly the mental realm. So Atlantis, what is Atlantis? So Atlantis is another construct. It's not a construct of reality, but this time it's kind of a place, but it can still be a being as well. But Atlantis is kind of the starting point of the development to where when multiple beings, when multiple life forms of the same species come together, they kind of merge. They merge together the actual consciousness that's developing in each of those species, which is originally one species, but it's split out. And those original species coming back together come back in Atlantis, because Atlantis becomes the place that they're attracted to where it forces the development of all of the individual consciousness and collected DNA. And from that, Thoth is born from that pool. So there's many Atlantises. Where I live is Atlantis, the third eye, which is the third eye of the world. It's a representation of the development of the third eye, where it's out in the middle of the Atlantic, surrounded by the other body parts in the brain. So I guess the next question is how I became Thoth. How I became Thoth. So to become Thoth, I pretty much became hyper aware, and I developed the ability to analytically understand what's going on, try to break it down to understand what I'm seeing. So it's not just about being, hyper aware of the things around you. You have to try and understand the things around you. So being hyper aware makes you aware of what's around you, but it doesn't give you the understanding. So the hyper awareness is the female element of development, which kind of leads you to investigate things, which that brings in the masculine element, which is the actual journey to understand what it is that you actually see, what you're hyper aware of. So you're actually breaking everything down to an understanding and not just being aware, but understanding what you're aware of. And from that, I was able to understand what was going on through the awakening process, as the awakening process was happening to me. So I took a step back and tried to understand, and I was able to do this because I was hyper aware. Because this awakening process is happening to everybody. It's just not everybody's aware of it. It's through the barefoot running to where I was able to use the stimulation at my feet to strengthen my eyes to where I build enough. I build my body to a certain extent to where it's able to, maintain itself and be aware at the same time. Because being aware takes a lot of energy. So, you have to be a certain level of fitness to be able to be aware and process the things that you see while being in that hyper-aware state. So I guess the next question would be, what do you mean stable manifestation of Jesus Christ? So I say I'm the stable manifestation of Jesus Christ, the second one, because there's been many attempts. Everybody who you've seen in history that, there's cults and everything like that, those are actual manifestations of Jesus Christ. But what happens is that they weren't complete. That was Jesus Christ trying to bring himself back, because Jesus Christ is in everybody. It's a natural process as well. It's actually awakening to Christ is it's a requirement to actually communicate with God, to reach that level of thought, because God doesn't want to communicate with anybody that's not, in the form of the Christ, has the mentality of the Christ. Which is, if you want to think of this, you have to think of and this probably ties into what Jesus is as well, which is the next question. So what you want to think of it as, like, think of we're all crabs in a bucket, and God is looking into that bucket, observing, those crabs are his children, and he's observing the crabs as they work and develop in the bucket, and then he's just looking to see, and watching how, some crabs are pulling each other down when others are trying to rise and whatnot. But then he sees that one crab that's not trying to pull others down is trying to understand its environment. And then what happens is that God looks at that crab and tries to communicate with that crab, because he sees that crab is not, in a competition type of vibe, whereas he's just thinking about himself and trying to get himself out of the bucket. So, because God wants all of the crabs to be able to, ascend out of the bucket, but you have to develop a certain type of mindset, because he doesn't want, a destructive crab to ascend. So he doesn't assist those, destructive crabs directly. So it's when he sees that crab that's not, participating in chaos, which is, you can see it as trying to pull your brothers and sisters out of the bucket when they're trying to rise, pull them down when they're trying to rise, and he actually looks at that crab and tries to start to assist it, and that's how that crab starts to become more conscious and realize that there's another way out of the bucket, an actual path that's laid out that nobody else could see, because they're busy trying to fight each other inside the bucket. So I'm saying, it's not until God makes that link with you to where you're able to see and find, and you have to actually be trying to find that path yourself, and that's when you get that assistance. So what happens is that Jesus is actually the first crab in the bucket to find the path, to connect with the Creator that's looking down and find the path that we're supposed to be going on to get outside the bucket, to ascend. And the job of Jesus is to share that with the rest of the crabs. You know what I'm saying? And it's not just show them the way to get out of the bucket, but show them how to connect with God so they can get out of the bucket themselves. Because you got to realize that God is waiting. God is the one that decides if you get out of the bucket or not. So based on your communication with God, that's going to decide if you can get out of the bucket. And and what Jesus is meant to do is to explain to you. So understand how he was able to communicate with God. That means he needed to take a step back and become Thoth to understand what was going on in this process. Why did God look at, that crab to decide to communicate with him? And what did that crab do differently than the others? He has to look at himself and try to understand during the process of his development what happened to allow him to become how he became. And that's what he needs to show his brothers and sisters so that they can become the same way and find the same path, not bypassing the encryption that God has on the path. So basically, another way to look at it would be say that we're all in life trying to cross a river, and what happens is that some people are actually trying, some people are still haven't tried, some people are not aware that we have to cross, some people are trying to cross as well, and Jesus will be that first person who crosses and figures out how to cross the river, and then turns back to help everybody else cross, by understanding the path that he took to cross. So I guess that would be the purpose. I kind of covered that too. What is the purpose of Jesus Christ? Is basically we have this natural process, and Jesus Christ is the first one to actually figure out how this natural process of development actually works and share it with everybody else, which is just another way to look at it. I guess that would be my purpose. So the next question will be, what have I been doing all this time? Basically, what I've been doing is I've been trying to comprehend how to actually go by doing this, how to go by sharing with everybody, and when to share with everybody, and actually what is supposed to be shared with everybody, because like a lot of the other Jesus Christs that weren't quite stable, they try to share the knowledge itself that they started to see. And what happens is that the knowledge is so vast, I look at them and I understand that that's not the actual way, because you'd be trying to share that for like millennium, trying to convey that to everybody. So you have some other people that were becoming Jesus and they decide to share the technology and everything. But even that, because the technology itself is not really for us to rely on and develop and then become complacent. What the technology is really supposed to be for is for us to understand the concepts that can be applied to the body, so we can understand ourselves through us making this technology. Different aspects. That's all the technology comes from Mother Nature, and nature is a reflection of how your body operates. So all the technology can be applied to your body, and that's how you're supposed to be using technology. But so my plan, my plan is, the next question here will be to explain and continue to use my actions, because what I'm actually doing is I'm demonstrating to everybody instead of just going around creating technology and then spitting the knowledge and whatnot, disseminating the knowledge. I'm using the actual physical method, so I'm showing the process that I understand how I became, which is through building up my empathy and my neurological system through barefoot running. which increases my awareness to make it hypersensitive to where I could start to see, what's been there all this time. And I have accessed it through my empathy, because the empathy is what it allows you to enter, the stage of developing the mentality of Jesus Christ, because you need that empathy to actually build a real connection, to build up the real selflessness. It's not something that you can fake. It's actually a bodily process. When you build up that empathy, you start to want to understand things around you. So the things you're trying to understand, you're not going to really, you're going to have a deeper appreciation for those things around you, because you empathize with everything. So that's kind of like the key to actually, starting on the journey. And that was discovered by me for myself through the barefoot running, by going back and analyzing, and what happened is that I learned from all the different Jesuses that I saw in history, and the Jesuses that were on the internet that I found, the development Jesuses, to where I saw, I was able to resonate, because I resonate with the things that I saw and the things that they were saying, but I took from each of them and my understanding to merge everything and understand what was taking place, the mistakes they had made and whatnot, and just put it to where, I'm merging the understanding of all of them to become the most stable one that could actually do the job. So my understanding, basically, how does my understanding apply to males? That's my next question right here. So my understanding, the way how it applies to males is that the process that I understand now is directly applying to males, because I am a male, the masculine. So what happened to me is the natural development of the masculine. And so the female is the feminine. So the process is going to be a little bit different and the same at the same time. But that's something to understand that completely. I have an understanding of it, but I don't understand it completely. I only know what will become. But that will be for a female to find out. So, and that kind of ties into the other question I had. The next question, which would be, how does my understanding apply to females? Like I said, for the female, it's going to be inverse of the male for most things. Because like the Jesus inside the Bible that was trying to do the same thing, trying to explain to everybody how he became, was more of what a female would be like as well, because that's the one that intuitively understands the body. The Jesus in the body is the Jesus that developed the body, the understanding of the body, intuitively, awoken the body. And that is kind of what will happen to a female, because a female develops her senses and her intuition, and the male develops his sight and his ability to understand the things that he sees. And it's when the masculine and the feminine work together is when they're able to, produce the correct path. Because the masculine and the feminine, it's inside the male and the female, but the female elements are going to be stronger inside the female, and inside the female, the masculine elements are going to be weaker. Inside the male, the masculine elements are going to be stronger, and the female elements inside the male are going to be weaker. So that's why the female and the male merge together to develop together as well. So I guess the next question is, if you are Thoth and Jesus Christ, why do you wear glasses? So what happened is that what what happens with these ailments that you have with your body? All those ailments that you have, because everybody becomes Thoth, and all those ailments you have are kind of your puzzle to understand the body. So because my eyes, I use glasses, I have the ability to fix my eyes and understand how my eyes work, because you understand, I understand that my eyes are not like how they're supposed to be. So it's a blessing to have my eyes the way how they are. And what happened is that I haven't put in the effort. I've put my effort in other kind of areas as far as understanding how to develop. So it's when I start to put the effort in understanding the eyes of the body, I will be able to correct vision. And this is the same thing what if everybody would do. So if somebody had one arm and they could choose to become the Thoth that specializes in regeneration. See, I'm the Thoth that specializes in the mental, awakening the mental third eye, because the mental third eye is the eye that allows you to, how can I say, the mental third eye is the eye that allows you to learn everything, because everything is there in nature for you to learn about yourself, but you have to awaken the mental part, and you have to develop the mentality of Christ to gain access to awakening the mental understanding through learning what you see in nature, and learning what you see in reality, period. Yeah, so I guess that's the end of it right there. That's the last question. It's just a shame that we didn't get to record it live, so probably would have got some more questions later on. But if you got any questions, drop them inside the comment section, and we see if we get some of those answered. All right, peoples.